Hey everybody, hope everyone's doing well. Today I want to talk about how to properly diagnose a starting issue with your car. So many times in the almost 50 years that I've been in the auto repair business, I've found people just very simply misdiagnose what should be a fairly simple thing to diagnose. And that's just because of lack of understanding of how the system works. So, there's different things that have to occur for your car to actually start and run. And the first part of it is when you turn the key and the battery sends voltage to the starter once it gets a signal that you want to start the car. So, obviously, if the battery's dead, the car is not going to start. But there are things that can cause the battery to be dead. So step one is, if the battery, you find that the car won't start, is to test battery voltage. That's the first thing you want to do. If the battery voltage is very low, and by very low, surface charge below 11 volts, and if you have the ability to load test it, that's a very good thing. If you don't have a load tester, you can just use a voltmeter. But if it's below 11 volts, you're going to want to charge the battery first. Then once you charge the battery, then see if the car will start then. If it does start, then the second thing you want to do is test the voltage while the car is running. You should have a minimum voltage with it running of somewhere around 13.5 volts. If it's below that, a tenth of a volt or two, that's not a huge deal. Bring the RPM up and see what it looks like, but it should be somewhere in that neighborhood at a minimum, somewhere over 13 volts. If that's the case, then most likely you do just have a bad battery, or you had something that caused it to go dead. That's a little more difficult to diagnose if there's a draw, but that's not very common as long as you didn't do something simple like leave your headlights on or the door open. So we'll move on from there. So now that's how you're going to test the battery and the charging system to make sure the alternator is putting out. And like I said, if you have over 13.5 volts, you're good to go. You just need to replace the battery most likely. So if you did these things, you made sure the battery had a full charge and the car still won't start, then you have to move on to the starter. And a lot of people have the misconception that the starter does exactly what it says, which is makes the car start. It really doesn't. The starter is really just an electric motor that actually just causes the engine to spin, which lets it build compression, take in the air and fuel, and the spark to be applied. It fires it, and then the engine itself takes over running. But the starter's job is to rotate the engine so it can start, and if it doesn't do that, obviously it's not going to start. So what you have to do if you know you have good voltage at the battery is you have to use a voltmeter and go to the signal wire of the starter. And that's usually a very small wire compared to the other wire that's hooked to the starter. And you want to check with someone turning the key that you have voltage to that terminal on the starter. If you don't, then most likely you have a problem with the starter relay, a blown fuse, the ignition switch, or some type of an immobilizer issue like the anti-theft system that's causing that. So that would have to be further diagnosed. But if you do have voltage and you know the battery's good and you're getting voltage at the signal wire when you turn the key, then most likely you have a bad start. There's a couple things you can do here to try. Is to take a heavy object like a hammer, and if you can get to it, wrap the starter while somebody's turning the key to start. And 9 times out of 10, if the starter's bad, you'll get some kind of a operation of it then. It may not turn the car over, but it'll try to, or it'll make a noise. Then you're almost 100% sure your starter's bad. Going back to the no signal to the wire, if you don't have voltage to the signal wire, the activator wire, then you can take a jumper from the main battery terminal on the starter, the main voltage terminal, the big battery cable, to that small terminal on the starter with a screwdriver or a jumper wire, and if it cranks over then you know you do definitely have a problem with no signal to the starter. And commonly, again, that's going to be the starter relay or a blown fuse. So I hope that'll help help you diagnose that simple type of issue. There is more sophisticated things that can be going on that are more in depth and would take a lot more skill and test equipment, quite frankly, to test. But anyway, that would get you started and pointed in the right direction. Don't forget to like and subscribe this video. I'm going to continue to do more how-to and informational stuff, as well as my typical entertainment type stuff. But thanks for watching.